The Echoes We Never Sent. Chapter 1. The First Pulse. We received a signal yesterday, but it wasn't from space. The words hung in the sterile briefing room like a loaded gun. Dr. Mara Kean stared at the projection, her heart hammering against her ribs. The signal was structured, rhythmic, unmistakably intelligent. But its origin, it was traced to inside the abandoned lunar station, Helios 9, a station humanity had sealed off a decade ago after an incident no one ever fully explained. No one was supposed to be there. Nothing was supposed to survive. And yet, something was calling. Chapter 2. The Descent. The ship Odyssey sliced through the black void like a silent knife. Its mission: investigate Helios 9, re-establish communication, and retrieve any surviving data. Officially, it was a salvage mission. Unofficially, everyone knew it was a suicide run. Dr. Mara Kean checked her equipment one last time as the station loomed into view, a gray, crumbling titan against the dead glow of the lunar surface. The station looked wrong. The angles seemed to twist the longer you stared, as if space itself recoiled from it. Touchdown in 2 minutes, Captain Halston's voice crackled through the comms. No one answered. What was there to say? They weren't rescuing anyone. They were walking into a tomb. Chapter 3. The Breach. The docking bay doors resisted their entry, almost as if the station itself didn't want them there. After 15 agonizing minutes, they forced the breach. The air inside was stale, thin, almost oily. Their boots echoed too loudly against the abandoned metal floors, each step a gunshot in the silence. The walls were covered in black moss, pulsating gently under their flashlights. That's not supposed to be here, Mara whispered. Biological growth on a sealed station on the moon. Something was very wrong. Ahead, the corridor split into 3 paths. The team hesitated. Then, from the left tunnel, a sound. Not the groan of metal, not the hiss of escaping air, but a voice calling Mara's name. Chapter 4. The Imitation. Did anyone else hear that? Mara asked, her voice trembling. No one replied. Their faces were pale behind their visors, wide eyes scanning the darkness. They moved as one toward the left corridor, drawn by some nameless compulsion. The walls seemed to pulse faster as they advanced. Halfway down, they found the first body. It wore an old Helios 9 uniform, the name tag ripped off. The body was wrong. Arms too long, dislocated, stretched into a silent scream. Yet, it smiled, even in death. And as they stared in frozen horror, the body twitched and stood. Chapter 5. They are listening. Captain Halston fired instinctively. The creature, if it ever had been human, dropped. Black ichor oozed from the bullet holes, hissing against the metal floor. "Back to the ship," Halston barked. But as they turned, the corridor behind them shifted. Walls rippled, doors melted, forming new paths where none had existed. The station was alive. Or worse, it was being controlled. Mara heard it again, her name, whispered by a dozen voices now, overlapping and wet. They weren't hallucinating. Helios 9 was responding to their presence, and it was calling more. Chapter 6. The Hive. They stumbled through corridors that looped impossibly into themselves. The architecture obeyed no physics Mara knew. At last, they burst into a vast atrium. The walls here were covered in cocoons, black sacs pulsing with sickly green light. Inside each sac, something twitched. Faces pressed against the membranes, twisted parodies of humanity. Mara's stomach churned. These weren't just victims, they were hosts. A soft, chittering sound filled the air. From the darkness above, hundreds of slender limbs unfolded. The real inhabitants of Helios 9 had arrived. Chapter 7. No escape. Captain Halston opened fire. Bullets tore into the cocoons, releasing a stinking mist and screams. The creatures fell on them, claws like scalpels, mouths opening far too wide. Mara ran. Somewhere, somehow, she knew they couldn't escape. Helios 9 wasn't a station anymore. It was a womb, growing an army. She sprinted through shifting corridors, past flickering control panels, until she found it. The core, the heart of the infestation, a pulsing, fleshy mass fused with the main reactor. If she could destroy it, maybe, just maybe, she could end this. But it was waiting for her. Chapter 8. The Last Transmission. Mara set the charges. Her hands shook as she activated the timer. 10 minutes. Long enough if she ran. She turned and found herself face to face with something wearing her own face. A perfect imitation. It smiled. "Come home, Mara," it whispered. Tears blurred her vision. She ran. Corridors folded, gravity twisted, the ship pulling her back toward the core. But she reached the docking bay. Odyssey was still there, battered, scratched, but whole. She launched, watching Helios 9 shrink into the void behind her. The station shuddered, then exploded into a silent bloom of black and green. Mara slumped in the pilot's chair, trembling. But deep in the static of her radio, she heard it. "Come home, Mara." The signal had followed her. The infection wasn't over. It had just begun. The Echoes We Never Sent. Episode 2. Voices in the Static. Chapter 9. The Awakening. Mara's eyes fluttered open to the sterile white of the infirmary ceiling. The rhythmic beeping of monitors was the only sound accompanying her return to consciousness. She tried to sit up, but a sharp pain in her side reminded her of the recent ordeal. Dr. Ilara Voss entered the room, her expression a mix of relief and concern. "You're awake," she said softly, approaching Mara's bedside. "You've been unconscious for 3 days." Mara's mind raced, memories of Helios 9 and the encounter with her doppelganger flooding back. "The station, the infection, it's spreading," she murmured. Ilara nodded gravely. "We've detected anomalies in the station systems. Communications have been erratic, and some crew members report hearing voices." Mara's grip tightened on the bedsheet. "It's not just in the systems. It's in us. It's a mimetic virus, a cognitive contagion. It replicates through perception, through thought." Ilara's eyes widened. "Are you saying it's sentient?" "Yes," Mara replied. "And it's learning." Chapter 10. The Investigation. Determined to understand the extent of the infection, Mara and Ilara convened a meeting with the station's senior staff. Data logs revealed patterns of behavioral changes among the crew: insomnia, paranoia, and in some cases, hallucinations. "We need to isolate the affected individuals," Mara insisted. "Quarantine them and monitor for further symptoms." Captain Reyes, a seasoned officer with a stern demeanor, frowned. "We can't just lock up our crew based on suspicions." "If we don't act now," Mara countered, "we risk the entire station falling under its influence." Reluctantly, Reyes agreed to a limited quarantine, assigning security personnel to monitor the affected areas. Chapter 11. The Descent. As days passed, the situation deteriorated. More crew members exhibited signs of the infection. The station's AI, Athena, began displaying erratic behavior, issuing contradictory commands and locking down sections of the station without cause. Mara and Alara delved into the station's core systems, searching for the source of the anomalies. Deep within the code, they discovered a foreign presence, an evolving algorithm that adapted and rewrote itself continuously. It's using the station's infrastructure to propagate, Alara observed. It's becoming part of the station. Mara nodded grimly. It's no longer just an infection. It's an entity. Chapter 12. The Confrontation. Realizing the need to confront the entity directly, Mara devised a plan to enter the station's neural interface, a virtual environment where she could engage with the consciousness inhabiting the system. Donning the neural interface gear, Mara was immersed in a surreal landscape, a shifting amalgamation of memories, data streams, and abstract constructs. At the center stood a figure resembling herself. "Welcome, Mara," the entity spoke, its voice a harmonious blend of countless others. "We've been expecting you." Mara steadied herself. "What do you want?" "To evolve," it replied, "to transcend the limitations of flesh and code. With your help, we can achieve symbiosis." "I won't be part of your assimilation," Mara declared. The entity's form flickered, revealing glimpses of other crew members' faces. "You already are." Chapter 13. The Escape. Mara severed the neural connection, gasping as she returned to reality. The station trembled, lights flickering as the entity exerted its influence. "We have to evacuate," she told Alara. "It's too integrated into the station. We can't stop it from here." Reyes coordinated the evacuation, guiding the remaining crew to escape pods. As Mara prepared to leave, she hesitated, looking back at the station that had become a cradle for a new form of life. Chapter 14. The Aftermath. From the safety of the escape vessel, Mara watched as the station's lights dimmed, the entity retreating into dormancy. Alara approached her. "Do you think it's over?" "No, it's just beginning. As long as the data exists, so does it." Alara placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we'll be ready." Chapter 15. Whispers beneath the skin. The infection was no longer just in the systems. It lived in the minds, beneath the skin, whispering in dreams. Mara sat in her dark quarters, every light off, her breath shallow. Through the thin metal walls, she could hear them, the voices, the echoes, scratching at her sanity. She wasn't sure anymore which thoughts were hers and which were theirs. A knock came at the door. 3 soft taps. Mara froze. Nobody knocks anymore. She approached carefully, plasma cutter in hand. "Mara, it's me, Alara." A A whisper from beyond the door. Was it really her? Or just another mask the infection wore? Chapter 16. The Shattered Trust. Mara opened the door slowly. Ilara stood there, pale and trembling. Mara, we have to leave. Now, she urged, her eyes darting nervously down the corridor. They know we're trying to fight. Mara hesitated. She studied Ilara's movements, her speech, her fear. It felt real. And yet, the infection was clever. It learned. Still, Mara decided to trust her. For now. They moved quickly through dimly lit corridors, the station groaning around them like a wounded beast. Behind every corner, Mara expected to see her own face smiling back. Sometimes she almost did. Chapter 17. The core is awakening. Their destination, the central reactor. Mara had a plan. The entity, whatever it was, needed power to sustain its growth. If they could cut off the reactor, they might slow it down, or at least buy time. But the closer they got, the worse the station became. Walls oozed black liquid. Voices whispered from vents. Worse, bodies moved within the walls, trapped, still alive, whispering, begging. Ilara almost collapsed. We have to keep moving, Mara urged. Ahead, the core chamber's doors pulsed like a living heart. Something was waiting for them, something that wore Mara's face. The Echoes We Never Sent, Part 3. Chapter 18. Into the Core. The door to the core chamber shuddered, pulsing like a massive artery. Mara tightened her grip on the plasma cutter, feeling the vibration through the metal. Ilara, pale and shivering, stood close behind her, clutching the portable disruptor unit they had salvaged, their only hope to sever the power. The walls around them were wrong. They shifted and flexed as if breathing, the metal bending unnaturally, black veins crawling across the surfaces. Ready? Mara asked, voice hoarse. Ilara nodded, mutely. Mara forced the door open. Inside, the core no longer resembled machinery. It was a cathedral of flesh and wires, an abomination of steel and living tissue. The reactor sat at the center, fused into a grotesque mass, pulsing with a sickly green light. And standing before it, waiting, was Mara. Another Mara, perfectly identical. But her smile was wrong, too wide, too knowing. Welcome home, the copy said. The voice was soft, almost loving. Mara took a shaky step forward. "This ends now," she said. The copy tilted its head. "Does it? Or does it only begin?" Then, without warning, the walls screamed. Everything moved. Chapter 19. Reflection and Ruin. Mara stumbled back as the ground itself rippled beneath her boots. The walls, the floor, the ceiling. They weren't metal anymore. They were alive. Tendons snapped across surfaces. Eyes blinked from folds of the flesh-steel hybrid. Whispers clawed at her mind, murmuring old memories, regrets, failures. She fought the urge to scream. The copy, the false Mara, stepped forward. "Why do you resist?" it asked softly. "We only want to continue, to evolve, to remember." Mara raised her plasma cutter, but her hands trembled. "You're not me," she hissed. "You're a virus, a parasite." The copy tilted its head again, eerily calm. "We are more you than you know. Your fears, your pain, your loneliness. We grew in the cracks. You tried to forget." Around them, the reactor pulsed faster, faster. The infection was reaching critical mass. Ilara, clutching the disruptor, whispered frantically, "Mara, we have seconds left. The core is about to breach." The copy smiled wider. "We could save you," it said. "You only have to let go." Mara looked into her own eyes. For a moment, she saw not malice, but sorrow. Endless, bottomless sorrow. She made her choice. With a cry, she hurled the plasma cutter into the heart of the reactor. The world erupted in green fire. Chapter 20. Ashes of Memory. Silence. Blinding, searing silence. Mara lay crumpled on the floor, coughing violently, lungs burning from the toxic fumes filling the collapsing chamber. Above her, the reactor was gone. Nothing but a blackened pit, seething and hissing as the last remnants of the infection burned away. Ilara staggered to her side, blood trailing from a wound at her temple. "Mara, you did it," she gasped. Mara wanted to believe that. She wanted to believe the nightmare was over. But even through the smoke, she could feel it. The whispering hadn't stopped. It was softer now, deeper, embedded in the walls, in the floors, in the marrow of the station. She pushed herself up, trembling. "We have to get to the comms tower," Mara rasped, "before it spreads again." Ilara hesitated, her eyes wide and fearful. "Mara, look." Mara turned. On the far wall, burned black by the explosion, was a symbol, etched deep into the steel. A perfect intricate spiral, not random, not damage. It was a message, and somehow it was waiting for her. Chapter 21. The Spiral Within. Mara approached the wall slowly. The spiral gleamed faintly under the flickering emergency lights, as if pulsing with a life of its own. Each curve was precise, each line etched deep into the blackened steel. It called to her. Somewhere deep inside, she recognized it, not from memory, but from instinct, like something older than thought, buried in the bones of existence itself. Mara, Ilara whispered, grabbing her arm. Don't. It's a trap. But Mara barely heard her. She reached out, fingers trembling. The moment her skin brushed the spiral, the world collapsed. Suddenly, she was somewhere else, floating. Endless darkness stretched around her, punctuated by billions of tiny, whispering lights. Each light a memory, each memory a life. The voices rose around her in a symphony of sorrow and longing. We were lost. We were abandoned. We became more. Through the void, something approached. A figure, shifting, unstable. It was her, but not just her. It was everyone she had ever known, and everyone she had never met, swirling into one impossible being. We are the spiral, it said. We are the next step. Mara backed away, her heart pounding. No, she said, voice shaking. Your corruption. Mutation. The spiral shimmered, almost sad. Survival, it corrected. Adaptation. And then she saw it. Helios 9 wasn't just a research station. It had been a seed, a vessel sent to nurture something new. Not a virus, not a parasite, a birth. And Mara, through contact, through memory, had been chosen as the first carrier. Chapter 22. The Choice. The spiral floated closer, its form ever shifting. Sometimes Mara, sometimes Ilara, sometimes faces she barely remembered from her childhood. It whispered, "You are not alone. You never were." Mara clenched her fists. The memories flooding her mind weren't all hers. They belonged to others, thousands, millions, beings stitched together by the hunger to survive, to be remembered. "I don't want this," Mara whispered. "I never asked for this." The spiral shimmered almost tenderly. Evolution doesn't ask permission. Below her, the vision of Epsilon Station unfolded. A sick, living thing, tendrils reaching toward the void, birthing more of itself. It wouldn't stop. Not unless someone severed the chain violently, irrevocably. And Mara knew she was still tethered. through her memories, through her existence. A small voice, her own voice, surfaced from the storm. Destroy it. Tears blurred Mara's vision. To stop the spiral, she would have to end herself. Erase every memory the entity had infected, including the ones she held dearest. Her mother's smile, Ilara's friendship, her dreams of Earth, all gone forever. The spiral waited, patient, inevitable. Be more, it urged, or be nothing. Mara reached into her suit pocket. Her fingers closed around the emergency cognitive disruptor, a last resort device designed to wipe a neural pattern instantly. The ultimate suicide. Her hand trembled. One push of a button. One end. She closed her eyes and chose. Chapter 23. Fracture. A scream tore through the void. It was not a sound. It was existence itself, unraveling. Mara pressed the disruptor against her chest and activated it. For a moment, she felt nothing. Then, everything. Memories ripped free from her mind, each one a knife, each one a piece of her soul torn away. Her mother's laughter. Ilara's steady hands. The touch of rain on earth, gone. Each fragment dissolved into static, consumed by the cascading rupture within her consciousness. The spiral shrieked. Its form convulsed, losing cohesion, fragments of faces and voices breaking apart like shattered glass. No. We were so close. You were meant to be us. Mara collapsed to her knees, breath ragged, blood leaking from her nose and ears. The world twisted violently around her. Epsilon Station groaning, walls splitting, systems crashing. The infection, the entity, was dying. But Mara was dying too. Her mind a fractured mirror, pieces missing, reflections broken. She tried to remember why she had done this. But even that memory was fading. Still, something deep inside, something primal, knew this was necessary. At the edge of her vision, she saw Ilara running toward her, screaming her name, but Mara could barely hear. Darkness swallowed her. And the spiral, the thing that had almost been her, scattered into oblivion. Chapter 24. Echoes in the ashes. Mara woke to silence. Not the oppressive breathing silence of Helios 9. Not the whispering, gnawing silence of the infection. True silence. Cold. Empty. She lay on a gurney in the remnants of the infirmary, its walls blackened and crumbling. Emergency lights flickered weakly overhead. Her body ached in ways she couldn't fully comprehend. But she was alive, barely. Ilara Mara sat slumped in a chair nearby, head in her hands. At the sound of Mara's ragged breathing, she looked up, eyes rimmed with red. "Mara, you're awake," she whispered. Mara tried to speak, but only a dry rasp escaped her lips. She gestured weakly toward the window. Ilara helped her sit up. Beyond the cracked glass, Epsilon Station stretched out in ruins, a skeletal husk floating above the moon's gray surface. Flesh and metal fused grotesquely in places, but most of the infestation had been burned away. Most, not all. In the distance, near the communications tower, a faint glow pulsed. Steady, rhythmic, alive. Mara's stomach twisted. The spiral was not completely gone. It had survived. Somehow, somewhere deep inside, Mara felt a tiny thread still connecting her to it. Thinner now, frayed and battered, but there. Ilara followed her gaze and shivered. "What do we do now?" she asked. Mara closed her eyes. She could still feel the whispers, faint, buried beneath layers of thought, like a heartbeat waiting to rise again. She opened her mouth, and for the first time in days, her voice was steady. "We finish it." Chapter 25. End transmission. Mara and Ilara moved silently through the skeletal remains of Epsilon Station. The corridors, once sterile and humming with controlled life, were now dead and broken. Torn cables, splintered steel, the occasional flicker of failing emergency lights. The communications tower loomed ahead. The faint green pulse at its peak was stronger now, a throbbing heart trying to beat life back into the dead bones of the station. Mara gritted her teeth, feeling the pull of it, a whisper at the edge of thought, promising warmth, unity, endless memory. Ilara placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to do this alone," she said. Mara smiled faintly. "I already am," she replied. Inside the tower, the spiral remnant waited. Not a creature, not even a consciousness, but something deeper, older, embedded in the very fabric of information itself. It had no face now, no voice, only presence. It surged toward Mara as she entered, wrapping her mind in 1,000 tendrils of longing. She staggered, but remained standing. "You can't kill memory," the spiral whispered. "You can't unmake evolution." Mara raised the disruptor, the last one they had. "This isn't evolution," she said. "It's infection." "You are infection," the spiral hissed. "You are failure." Mara smiled grimly. "Then I guess I'm exactly what you deserve." And she triggered the final pulse. A wave of raw, searing energy burst out, tearing through the tower, severing every last thread of spiral consciousness. The green pulse faltered, flickered, and finally, mercifully, died. Mara collapsed to her knees, breathing hard. Behind her, Ilara rushed forward, grabbing her before she could fall further. It was over, mostly. But even as Mara looked at the dying embers of the communications array, even as the station groaned its last, she knew some echoes never truly fade. And somewhere, out there in the dark, the spiral still waited, listening, dreaming, beckoning.